fiscal year 2021-22 budget. Mr. City Manager, I don't know if you have any presentation or report on this, or if this is just open for council discussion.
A little of both, Mayor.
Okay.
I did want to just briefly update the council on the amendment that Councilmember DeLucy mentioned at the conclusion of last Monday night's meeting. I did work on that this week, so I thought I would quickly review that with the council so that you know what you'll be considering when you vote on it in the budget next Monday evening. So the request was brought forward to identify an additional $300,000 to help support the startup of the health department. When we received the recognition from the state for the local public health agency, I met with our staff and really gave them two primary marching orders. One of those was make sure that this health department is the pride and envy of local public health agencies across the state, and recognizing that that would take time to do so, but also making certain that that didn't become an additional drain on our already constrained general fund resources. So this year, the budget we put together, I recognize didn't have everything fully funded that we would necessarily want in the health department, but pending the direction we were given last week, we did take a look at our American Recovery Plan budget. I will say up front, and this is in your cover sheet, that concept does run counter to our city financial policies, which state that we would use one-time revenues for one-time purposes and not to fund ongoing activities or operations. But that said, I know that the dialogue among the council last week was that we'd like to get a toehold at least and then figure out ongoing funding from that point. So beyond that, in working on this, the Comprehensive Mental Health Services, which is the mental health provider here for our area of Jackson County and Independence, secured $480,000 in the state budget for a crisis intervention center for mental health issues. And certainly I think 2020 and 2021 highlighted the importance of that need. What was not funded in that operating budget from the state, however, was the capital expenditures to support a facility, whether that be a new facility or a retro of a facility. And certainly we at the city are going to want to think longer term about where our health department lives and resides physically. We had a great presentation a couple weeks ago about how we're across the hall now, but I think as we grow that operation, we'll obviously require a larger footprint. So I did not see the resources to fully fund what we thought that capital expense would be, which would be $1.5 million, but we did identify.
So, I'm sorry.
Please.
Let me so the $1.5 million for comprehensive mental health or mental health services, if I remember correctly, during this past legislative session, there was an approval of funding for the operational.
Correct.
And that was $4 million?
$480,000 for this year. Yep.
For this year.
Yep.
Okay, so my understanding was that, that this $1.5 million in the capital was not approved yet.
Correct.
That doesn't mean that it won't come forward.
Correct. And what my thought here was in making this particular recommendation is this could be a backup plan if all else fails. In the best case of scenarios, if they do secure that, this could be our contribution towards a physical footprint somewhere for a permanent Independence Health Department.
Or we can wait for the state to fund it.
Correct. There's lots of options, certainly.
Okay.
And one of the great things about the recovery plan is we do have a few years. It's not like the CARES Act where we had that immediate shot clock that we were facing. So that said, the amendment that is before you all and would be considered next week would reduce our original proposal of the American Recovery Plan by $1.675 million in the following ways. Right-of-way trash removal by $1 million, abandoned vehicle enforcement program $285,000, illegal dumping mitigation $250,000, City Hall security improvements $100,000, and the housing study $40,000. I will say about the housing study, staff is down to interviewing 4 firms for that right now. All 4 of those firms did have cost proposals that came in under our original allocation for that, so we would not sacrifice quality of scope there. We just That was our original estimate of what, and it looks like those are going to come in under our staff estimate. The proposed reallocation then would be $300,000 of one-time monies for the costs associated with startup of the health department, and $1.375 million for capital costs for the health department, for a total of reallocation of $1.675 million. I just would like to stress again that $300,000, while it would give us that first year of startup cost, it will require us to identify those ongoing resources after June 30 of 2022. So I just want to help manage our community's expectations about the work that will be required over the next 12 months if that amendment were to be approved. So Mayor, that was the only presentation that I had this evening. We're happy to answer any additional questions about this or other budgetary issues, or any other discussion the council wishes to have as far as budget goes.
So has this amendment been distributed?
Yes, this was attached to the agenda item for the study session this evening, correct, Madam City Clerk? Okay.
Okay. Okay, is there any other discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. City Manager, with the housing study, have we reached out to any of our community partners, Habitat, Independence Housing Authority, any of those who may be doing housing studies that can do some cost sharing with that?
I don't think we've reached out to any of those yet because we're still in the evaluation stage of trying to select the vendor to perform it, though I do think we would hope that they would have a participation in that, certainly from a contributing intellectually, hopefully financially too, but I wanted to have a fail-safe here in case they didn't, that we would be able to fully fund it and not delay this yet another year.
Sure. Okay.
And Madam Mayor, I just have a quick question for Christina Heinen. Christina, you and I mean, I've only attended a few of the Board of Health meetings. You're the acting Board of Health Director. I just want to be sure that this proposal does what the Board of Health had advocated for the few meetings I went to. Does it?
Yes.
Okay.
My name's Christina Heinen. I'm the City of Independence Interim Health Director. And yes, we had discussed funding 2 additional public health specialists, 2 additional public health nurses, and some PRNs, which are nurses that are only used when we need them. That $300,000 that he is discussing, that would fully fund those positions. And that is what the Board of Health determined that we would need.
I've had so many numbers running around in my head. I just wanted to be sure. Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Okay, is there any other discussion regarding the budget?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I do have some questions regarding the budget. Mr. City Manager, I'm going through the budget, have for weeks. It's hard for me to understand in the back when we get into each broke down department, and then we get into the account descriptions, the line item numbers. There's no details for me to understand. If I come to you and I want to be reimbursed under this particular line item for interfund charge support services at $3.9 million, I have no idea what's being covered under this. So it's difficult for me to understand how I'm supposed to decipher this information without any details. So in the private sector, when I came to accounting and said, I have receipts and I need this, and they would have me fill out where it falls under the budget, a line item, and then I have to make sure that it actually is a detail that's covered by that expense. I don't have that here. And it's hard for me to understand. We've got a lot of big numbers thrown at us. I just don't have any details. So is there a particular reason why we don't give the council more information on these kind of details?
In a $313 million budget, it's very difficult to find enough trees to print all the pages to explain all of that. So we'd be happy to sit down and go into more detail with you. I will say on the interfund charges for support services, We will have a presentation to the Public Utility Advisory Board that I saw last Thursday that will make your eyes bleed and answer everything you ever wanted to know about interfund charges for support services. But we do, because of our third-party audit, our staff does have to bill those departments for those and manage invoices and receipts and have a clear cost accounting of what those expenditures were for.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I just, because it was in a different color, I picked that one randomly. I was gonna ask you about it anyway. But I have several line items that I'd like to give us some information on as well. So for, under the law department, I should have written down a page number, but 4100, it's 4100, 522, there's legal services of $420,000. What are we doing? And then, while you're looking at that one, there's another one under 6110, same category, legal services. That's in IPL, 200,000. What are we covering on those?
I will get the specific detail, but generally speaking, those are for outside counsel. So for example, when the city finds itself engaged in litigation, the outside counsel that represents the city, it's to cover the cost of those and/or any of the settlement expenses associated with any of those litigation items.
Okay, so you'll give me some information back on those?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then, since I have your attention, might as well go through them here. On page 62, sorry, I should have done that better. But on page 62, with the capital, under capital, 7020, 5406, other improvements, it's $6 million. Do we know what those are for?
That's one I'll have to get back with you on the detail of.
Yeah, in the back, page 62 in the back,
On the
on
itemized.
your detailed line items, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just a big number kind of hanging out there, and I don't know what we're buying, who we're buying, where we're buying it. I just would like to know some information on that. Also, on page 67, under the water non-departmental projects, there's capital projects. Again, 5406 is the object line number. 7040, it's 6.4 million, and I just would like to know what that number's covering. Just stay with me since you're gonna have to get them. Yeah. And then, for your treatment facilities, I was curious about the professional services. When we're talking about treatment, water treatment, professional services of $131,800, that's 5226 again. And then on page 71, I've been doing some homework. On interjurisdictional agencies, if I could just get an explanation on what the $8.3 million is for.
Would that be in water pollution control by chance?
That would be under laboratory services.
Okay.
So, actually, it's not. Jurisdictional agencies is its own category, 5210.
Okay,
So it has its own category.
okay,
I'm just
we'll
not sure what it's
check that
for.
one.
So, and then, we just, so if you could just give me some details on those numbers, that would help me out, understand where these big chunks of money are going.
Certainly, be happy to.
It's kind of what I had.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, then we will move on to our next report, which is boards and commissions. Madam City Clerk.
We have a few boards and commissions that are needing appointments. First is Human Relations Commission. The Council Interview Committee has made a recommendation to appoint Zachary Mallory. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Okay, is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll add that to the next council meeting on June 21st.
Next is Board of Adjustment. Council Interview Committee has recommended Dennis Hart, John Davies, and Robert Jones. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, we'll add that to the June 21st agenda.
Next is Board of Ethics. Council Interview Committee has made recommendation to appoint Carol Salina. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Is there any objection? Okay, we'll add that to the June 21st agenda.
Okay, next is the Public Utilities Advisory Board. The majority of the Council Interview Committee is recommending Sherry Tyndall and Les Boatwright. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Is there any objection?
Actually, Madam Mayor, I had a question about that one.
Yes.
So the people that are leaving are Mark McDonald and Jack Looney, is that correct?
That is correct.
I know Mark didn't want to be reappointed, but what about Jack? Did he?
He submitted an application of interest.
Okay. And then it shows we have one opening for that on the website. When's that going to be filled?
That'll be filled with the next Council Interview Committee.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what happens at this point, but it just bothers me that we're going to lose Mark, Jack, and then I guess it was Garland left. So I would like to actually see Jack get the spot and then maybe put one of the other two on the next one, but I don't know what happens if I object, but I guess I'm going to.
What, well, you're absolutely can object to this recommendation, and then we can, Madam City Clerk, create a additional resolution for appointment at the council meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we can create multiple resolutions for the next agenda and put them on under non-ordinance action items. So is the council wanting the recommendation from the Council Interview Committee on there as one item, or are we wanting to separate all of these out?
Why don't we normally just do this by acclamation, but why don't we, in this case, we'll just take a roll call vote on moving this recommendation forward to the June 21st council meeting, and then Councilman Stewart or anybody else is welcome to put an additional resolution for additional considerations of members.
I don't believe we can do a roll call during a study session.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
We can't.
So I don't
We
know
can't.
how
I know we can't.
I don't know how we're going to.
The
Yeah.
actions that you guys can have for your councils of procedure is putting a resolution on the next agenda.
Right, but to do an actual vote during a study session, we can't do it.
Yeah, you wouldn't be necessarily approving
Okay.
this. So we would just need to decide if we want to put this on there as well as the additional recommendation. And if that's the case, then Councilmember Stewart can work with my office and we can make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have some concerns with that too, about the continuity. You're losing 3 out of this thing. We just got through with strategies and all this stuff, and all of a sudden we've taken, I know Jack filled out for that, and just losing 3, and, just worried about if we're gonna be on the same page. I mean, we got some big decisions here with the generation and a few other things out there. We kind of guided the city manager and staff, this is the way we want to go. Now we're going to throw some more people in the mix that might not have the same thing. I'm just worried about the continuity there. And being Jack did want to stay on there. He did work for Power Light for over 40 years. He's been on the PUAB for a long time, which is not necessarily the best thing in the world, but we need some new blood in there also. But he does bring a lot to the table with his experiences and expertise out there. So I'd kind of, with Bryce there, I'd like to see him being considered.
So when did Mr. Land notify you that he was of his resignation from the board?
I don't have
He
an
notified
exact
me, but.
date. I believe I received his resignation about a week ago.
Okay. So, in other words, when the council interview committee was meeting, that vacancy was not known to them that they could have filled it.
Well, the way the process goes with the council interview committee, you get your slate of vacancies first. So this
Right.
council interview committee had already been teed up for the boards and commissions that they were going to review and the vacancies that they would review. So
Okay.
this resignation came after the fact of that
Okay.
being stated.
Okay. Again, we need to either, move this forward for consideration at the June 21st meeting, or I guess our other option would be to remand this back to the next council interview committee.
I guess that would be up to the
Or
council.
we can, and, you know, certainly council members are entitled to put resolutions on the agenda if there's somebody, if you want to provide an alternative to what the council interview committee is recommending.
Madam Mayor, if I may. So, being a part of the interview committee, it was myself, Councilman Hobart, and Councilman Steinmeier going through the applications and having the interviews and stuff. And the committee, and the majority of the committee put forward these names of the PUAB with the thought and the idea of trying to keep some of that institutional knowledge with, specifically with Mr. Les Boatwright, who has that institutional knowledge, being the chairman of the planning commission some time ago, so he has the understanding and working of that, coupled with a fresh idea of bringing in his 35 years of experience at KCP&L and working in the energy field and industry in that end. That was the thought there with Mr. Boatwright, and also with Ms. Tyndale, was to bring a fresh perspective and idea moving forward with the PUAB and having those discussions with her. So that was the thoughts and the ideas behind that. Thought I would give that to the body for consideration.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
My only concern was the candidates that moved forward to the interview process, one of them did not get interviewed. And I was hoping that it would have been, you know, some effort made to contact them and interview them. So with the PUAB meeting being canceled this month, maybe we consider moving it back to the next committee, the council committee, for future consideration.
I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't think, Councilman Steinmeier, if we're going to reconsider it, I think it should be with the council committee that interviewed these candidates.
Yes.
Not a new one.
Well, that's fine, and we can do that,
Yeah.
but it was just, I thought
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was a consideration,
Well,
so.
we do now have another vacancy to fill, so,
But it was gonna go to the next
Right, but-
committee, and that's why I say
Yeah.
we don't have an immediate need to do it at this point, so we can do it with no foul.
I would disagree, Madam Mayor. I think the committee that's been established here bring forth these two names, then the next revolving committee could review. And this would give placement to the urgent needs, as Councilman Huff said, that would bring in fresh blood and different perspective, institutional knowledge. We can get them moving and up to speed so they can hit the ground running.
okay. Well, since there is an objection, then we will not be moving this forward to next council agenda, if I understand it correctly.
Well,
Doesn't
why
move-
don't we move it forward and Bryce can put his resolution forward too? You don't want to do that?
I'll just go ahead and put my resolution on there.
Okay,
And
very good.
we
Then
can-
we'll move the recommendation forward to
mean,
the
I-
June 21st meeting, and then we can consider other recommendations as well, if council members wish to bring those forward.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
Planning Commission. The majority of the council interview committee recommended reappointing Billy Preston and appointing Bryce Young. If there's no objections, we will add a resolution to the next regular agenda.
Are there any objections? Okay, we'll move that forward to the next meeting.
Independent Square Advisory Board, recommendations been made to appoint Colin McLean, Audrey Elder, and Michelle Demas. If there's no objections, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Are there any objections? Okay, we'll move that forward to the next meeting.
Parks Commission, this is an individual appointment by Mayor Weir to appoint Kay Douglas. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Is there any objection? Okay, we'll move that to the next agenda.
All right, and finally, Board of Building Engineering Appeals. This is an individual appointment by Mayor Weir, and it's to appoint Jim Pollard. If there's no objection, we'll add a resolution to the next agenda.
Is there any objection? Okay, we'll move that to the next council meeting. Anything else, Madam City Clerk?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, then we are adjourned.